Today we're talking differences between the A7IV and the FX3, and it was pretty shocking when I moved from my A7IV to my FX3, mostly in a good way, but in a couple ways, pretty awful. So let's talk about the differences. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Welcome to the Aperture Life. Here on this channel, we go over all things photography, filmmaking, YouTube, pretty much everything content creation. So if you're into that sort of thing, don't forget to subscribe. Now, I bought the Sony A7 IV right when it came out 4.5 years ago, and I have taken 10,000 photos with it, literally. I've filmed about 400 YouTube videos on it. It has been my daily driver camera since the day that I bought it. But a couple months ago, it developed a problem. I had to send it off and get it fixed, and so I picked up an FX3 because this is the YouTuber holy grail, right? Like the indie filmmaker holy grail. Now, I expected there to be some differences between these two. I didn't expect it to be as drastic as it actually was. Now, the first thing that was pretty different between these that I didn't expect is the dynamic range. The A7 IV is supposed to have incredible dynamic range, and the FX3 is supposed to have incredible dynamic range. But there's something different about like the highlight roll-off in the FX3, and we're talking using the same LUTs, both in S-Log 3. It's just a little bit softer in the way that the light like rolls off. I didn't expect that. I expected it to look about the same or maybe worse because this is oversampled from 7K. This should be the better image. But for years, it looks really good. Don't get me wrong. The A7 IV looks fantastic, but it just kind of has had this crunchy digital look, over sharpened look, even with the sharpening turned down on the A7 IV that I've just always kind of not been a fan of. And the FX3 just looks, I know it's lower resolution. I know that's why, but it just looks significant. This is such a stupid thing to say. It looks significantly more filmic. It just does. The highlight roll off is better. It has less of that over sharpened digital image to me, and I didn't expect it to be as big of a difference as I personally feel that it is. Now, even after watching 100 videos on the FX3 before buying it and seeing all the different custom buttons, I didn't think that that would be that big of a difference because there are plenty of custom buttons on the A7 IV, and I've mapped them all to be very specific things to help me shoot better. And it's done a fine job, but I didn't expect all of the custom buttons that are labeled to what they should be to be such a game changer. The fact that I have a dedicated button for ISO that's labeled for ISO, for white balance that's labeled for white balance, for iris that's labeled for iris, peaking and zebras and my shutter and like focus magnification. Now, I've changed a couple things on here, mostly the dials here. I want the front dial to be shutter speed and I want the back dial to be aperture. But having all the dedicated buttons for everything that you would want to turn on and off and adjust when you're shooting video and having them labeled, man, is that like, that's really, really nice. And I didn't expect it to be such a shocking difference between the A7 IV. I also really like the record button on the top and the joystick on the top. So that way I can literally hold it like you would hold a cinema camera and be able to adjust focus points with the joystick. That has turned out to be significantly better than on the A7 IV trying to, like, I'd have to hold it like this so that way I could control the joystick. And it's just, this is way better for filming. I know it's supposed to be way better, but I didn't expect it to be that big of a difference. The next thing is the tally lights everywhere. I mean, the fact that there are tally lights on the front, on the top, on the back, and the fact that they are very bright and very easy to see. I can't tell you how many times, I mean, it's probably been like a dozen times, I've done a full 10, 12 minute, 15 minute take on the A7 IV and then been like, crap, I wasn't even recording that whole time, or a memory card filled up and I didn't realize it and it had stopped recording in the middle of my take. You cannot make that mistake on the FX3, and that is a really incredible difference. Now, the next thing that I expected to be a difference, but didn't expect it to be as noticeable, is the rolling shutter between the A7 IV and the FX3. The A7 IV has kind of notoriously bad rolling shutter. It's pretty jello-y, and I do a lot of vlogging stuff where I have like a super wide 14mm lens on here and I'm just vlogging like pretty often. And with active stabilization on, it's been fine. Like, no one in the comments has ever complained about the rolling shutter on my A7 IV. My videos would not have gotten any more views if it had better rolling shutter. However, it's something that I've always noticed when I'm like swinging around, and even when I'm holding the camera and doing movements, you can see it. The FX3 has some of the best rolling shutter on the entire market, and so I expected it to be a difference. I did not expect to be able to notice it in literally just like panning shots. In any sort of shots whatsoever that have any movement in them, I did not expect to be able to see and maybe more accurately feel the difference when I'm in the editing room editing this footage. It looks so much more stable and so much more solid. It's a bigger difference than I expected it to be. Now I've got it pulled off for this video, but the top handle, the XLR module top handle, allowing us to run XLR microphones straight into the camera. This is a Sennheiser 416. It's a very expensive industry standard shotgun microphone for filmmaking. I've had this microphone for a long time and I had been using it on my A7IV, but I always had to run it through this Tascam Portacapture X8, this field recorder. And this has a camera output on it. And so I would run my Sennheiser 416 into this Tascam and then run the camera output into the microphone input of my A7IV, and that is how I would record super high-end audio on my A7IV. This is not a cheap field recorder. This is a pretty expensive field recorder, and it's awesome. It really is fantastic, and I've used it an absolute ton. So I fully expected the XLR module on the top handle for the FX3 to be worse. Surely it's not going to be better than a dedicated field recorder that costs a ton of money, but yeah, this is better. The XLR module on here, it's quieter, it's cleaner. I like everything about the sound of this XLR top handle, the XLR module. I like it way better using the same microphone, and I did not expect that at all. I really expected it to sound slightly worse, and it doesn't. It sounds significantly better. Now this one's gonna be pretty obvious, but rigging. Obviously there's quarter 20s all over the FX3, and you have to do an entire cage on the A7IV in order to rig it out. By the way, I've done full videos on both of these. I have a full video on rigging out the A7IV as a cinema rig, and I have a full video dedicated to how I've rigged out my FX3 as a cinema rig, and I will put links to both videos in the description down below. In addition to links for those videos, there's links for every product that I use here. The microphones that I use, the monitor that I use, the cages that I use, these two cameras on their own, and those are affiliate links. This is not a sponsored video. No one sent me any of this stuff for free. But if you enjoy this video and you use any of those links to purchase anything that you need, I get a tiny bit of commission. It costs you nothing extra. Really, really helps the channel out. It's a huge help to small channels like this. So thank you for using those links anytime you need to purchase any camera gear whatsoever. Back to rigging. Obviously the FX3 is easier to rig out because there's quarter 20s all over it. It's a bigger deal than I expected it to be. This cage from Small Rig here is just, it's such an excellent low profile cage. It's got the Arca Swiss plate built right into the bottom of it. Like, rigging this out is a joy compared to the A7IV. Now this next one to me is a massive pro, but it's gonna lead me into what I think is the biggest con about the FX3 that I had no idea and I've never heard anybody talk about. Now that I have both of these, let me back up for a second. My work is equally photo and video. I'm a published photographer, published and printed photographer. I do product photography for a ton of big companies. I'm an avid landscape photographer. I'm super into photography, and it is professionally something that's a big part of what I do. But I also make a ton of videos, over 400 YouTube videos. Done a ton of shorts, done a ton of reels, created content for huge companies, and being able to have these two separate has been awesome. Being able to keep my A7IV as a photo camera, like 97% of the time, unless I need to use it as a B cam, this just stays not rigged up at all, and it is my photo camera. And that is awesome. And this stays rigged up 97% of the time unless I'm vlogging, and it is my video camera, my filmmaking camera. And having two separate cameras and not having to switch back and forth has been delightful. But that leads me into the thing that is the most shocking about the FX3. See, for the longest time, I would film, by the way, I'm filming on the A6400 right now, my super old camera that I started YouTube with. Hopefully it's doing an okay job. See, for the longest time, I would film a video just like this with the A7IV. It'd be sitting right here. And then when I was done filming, I didn't have to take it off the tripod. I wouldn't even have to change the lens usually. I would just flip over to photo mode and shoot the thumbnail for the video just like this. Now, 12 megapixels, which is what the FX FX3 is more than enough to shoot YouTube thumbnails. It's more than enough to shoot Instagram photos. And so I fully expected to just have the same workflow with the FX3, where I would just leave it up and I would shoot the thumbnail at some point during the filming process with the same camera. But for some reason, Lightroom does not support FX3 RAW files. Neither does the OS on my Mac. And I had to do some digging on this, and yes, for some reason, the RAW files of the FX3 are not supported on Mac. I can't preview them in a Finder window. And they also will not import into Lightroom. I use the cloud-based Lightroom. They will not import into the cloud-based Lightroom, which is what I use. First of all, it's insane. Come on, Apple. Come on, Adobe. Like, what are you doing here? This is one of the most popular cameras in the world at the moment. How are you not supporting RAW photos from these? That really blows my mind. So my workflow is very frustrating right now in that regard, as I will be filming this with this, and then when it's time to shoot the thumbnail, whatever angle, whatever I'm actually doing, I have to switch back to the A7IV to shoot the thumbnail, and then switch back to the FX3 to finish filming the video if I'm shooting the thumbnail halfway through it. That's unfortunate. So the workaround is you have to import the RAW files into Sony's actual software, and then you can export a DGN file or DNG file, and then you can import that into Lightroom, which is a pain in the butt. Supposedly Lightroom Classic supports RAW files from the FX3. I have not tested that yet because I use the cloud-based Lightroom because I'm swapping between devices all the time. So I still have to figure out if I'm gonna switch to Lightroom Classic for my thumbnails, and probably only for my thumbnails, or if I'm just gonna keep switching back and forth between the cameras. That's a real pain point that I've never heard anyone talk about. It's a pain in the butt. Okay, the next thing that is definitely worse on the FX3 than the A7IV that I really did not expect is actually the autofocus. This is a newer camera. This is based on the A7S III, which is an older camera than the A7IV, but the FX3 came out after the A7IV. And so I fully expected the autofocus to, at the least, be just as good as the A7IV, but it is not. It's not crazy worse, but it's worse, because there are times when I'm shooting a shot just like this. The A7IV would never lose focus in a talking head shot like this. Not ever once, not ever for any reason. As long as my eye is in the frame, it wouldn't matter where I was looking. It didn't matter what I was doing. The A7IV had a tiny box right around my eye no matter what. The FX3 gets confused sometimes, and when I look away from the camera, and especially if I am turning my head and looking away, sometimes it will grab focus on the background here, which is shocking to me. Now, I probably need to play around with the focus area, and if I go from wide to, I think, zone, the next one in, maybe that'll help. It will probably help. But I expected the FX3 to be every bit as good as the A7IV, and it is not. It's slightly worse, actually. I think in the grand scheme of cameras, it's still great autofocus, but it is worse than the A7IV. Don't forget to check out other videos on the channel. If you've made it this far, I feel like I've earned your subscription. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell next to the subscribe tab so you get notified when I upload new videos. I've got tons of videos on both of these cameras already out. Reviews, how I use them, lenses, all kinds of stuff. So check out the other videos. Don't forget links in the description for everything that I use, how I rig these up. And I appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.